The NFL offseason is a vicious landscape of boredom. Way too long, even when the Kansas City Chiefs are gracious enough to win consecutive Super Bowls. There's just too much time during the offseason and not enough going on. If the NFL could have, for example, a minor league and 2 drafts, I think that this would go so much more smoothly, but they don't. So, who am I? Who am I to make those suggestions? I've been watching a lot of tape from Xavier Worthy lately, trying to conjure up. It would be crass to say that I was trying to conjure up talking points, wouldn't it? But I have noticed things. So normally in the preseason, I do a series, which I'm still planning to do. What if XYZ starts? So I will go through the rookies and say, what if Xavier Worthy starts? What if Carson Steele starts? What if Kingsley Suamataia starts? What would the implications of that thing be? And as I was trying to gather the notes for the What If Xavier Worthy Starts dialogue, it struck me that, that Xavier Worthy might not be a starting wide receiver. Xavier Worthy might be a number 1 wide receiver. And I know that last year I ruined some of my own credibility going basically man by man through the depth chart at wide receiver, asking the question, who's going to be the Chiefs' number 1 wide receiver? But in my defense, I think by the time we got to the regular season, it was apparent to all of us, I was right, that no one was the Kansas City Chiefs' number 1 wide receiver, so it could have been any of them. One of the problems that rose last year early in the season was just that no one was the number 1 wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs, and so, in effect, it sort of became Marquez Valdes-Scantling. What a horrific turn of events. Eventually, Rashee Rice emerged as the go-to guy in the offense. Rashee Rice is likely to miss numerous weeks this coming NFL season. Now, during that time, he is likely to be on the commissioner's exempt list, which means that the Kansas City Chiefs will have an extra roster spot, which means they are likely to carry another wide receiver on their active roster until Rashee Rice comes back. So the idea of asking, I'm still going to do it, but the idea of asking, what if Xavier Worthy starts, is kind of a moot point because the Kansas City Chiefs might not have a choice. However, I think that in Rashee Rice's absence, we'll just say it's 6 games. Xavier Worthy is going to get the opportunity to prove that he belongs on the NFL level, to prove that he belongs on the field, and to prove that he belongs in the starting lineup. And what I'm going to do in this video is go through 6 of the Chiefs' wide receivers and talk about how Xavier Worthy, in my opinion, is going to be better than each of them at something that wide receiver himself should have been good at. So, for example, just throwing this one out there not to ruin anything, Xavier Worthy runs extremely effective stems. The stems to his routes are very, very effective in the way that Sky Moore was supposed to be the guy who ran very effective route stems. So we'll get there in a minute. But I have 2 points here on the screen that I think are worth making. Number 1 is just a reminder of who Xavier Worthy is, because we know him as the 4.21 40-yard dash guy. But he's a little bit more than that. 5'11" and 1/4 inches. That's a decent size for a wide receiver. There are plenty of wide receivers in the NFL who are effective and are shorter than 5'11 and 1/4. 165, very troubling number, but it's not unheard of. That 4-1 40-yard dash is in the 100th percentile, obviously, because it was the record. His 10-yard split of 1.49 is in the 92nd percentile. I forgot all about the fact that Xavier Worthy had a 41-inch vertical leap, which is in the 96th percentile, let alone that he had a 131-inch broad jump, which is in the 96th percentile. So in addition to, this sounds a little bit like it's oxymoronical to say that he's not just fast, he's explosive. There are plenty of examples of guys in the NFL who ran great 40-yard dashes, but had no hops whatsoever. This normally coincides with a guy who has, for example, a 95th percentile 40-yard dash, but a 75th percentile 10-yard split, meaning that he gains momentum as he goes. The explosiveness off the line is not there. That is not the case with Xavier Worthy. He is both fast and explosive. He is all three: fast, explosive, and quick. Now, when we look at his college numbers, as a freshman in college, he had 62 receptions, 981 yards for a 15.8-yard average and 12 touchdowns. At Texas, he came onto campus as an 18-year-old guy. 62 receptions, 981 yards, a 15.8-yard average, and 12 touchdowns. Now, the numbers don't get better from there, not really, but that's because Texas ended up adding weapons around him. He was, that freshman season, their biggest threat. As a sophomore, he had 2 fewer receptions for 221 fewer yards, a 3.1 yard average less at 12.7 yards, and it's a still impressive 9 touchdowns. Now, here's something interesting. In his junior season, he did finally crack the 1,000-yard barrier, but he took 75 receptions to get there. Still a respectable 13.5-yard average, but only 5 touchdowns. The offense was built differently, with Quinn Ewers pulling the trigger to a varietal of receiving targets. The deep ball was not erased from Xavier Worthy's game, but limited because defenses had to change the way they were playing against Texas. You see those other 3 sets of numbers below that, below the college set for Xavier Worthy. 2022, 46 receptions, 584 yards, 12.7-yard average, and 7 touchdowns. 2023, 58 receptions, 769 yards, a 13.3-yard average, and 8 touchdowns. 2024, 91 receptions. I think I got those years wrong. 91 receptions, 1,008 yards, 11.1-yard average, and 6 touchdowns. I think I got the years wrong. I don't think I transposed that correctly, but those are the numbers from Marquise Brown. His rookie season, let me see if I can. His rookie season, his sophomore season in the NFL, and then his third season in the NFL. Those were his years prior to, 2019, 2020, and 2021. I'm a moron. 19, 20, and 21. Now, there are some things similar in these numbers. It's not quite the same because you don't smack the NFL in the face the same way that you're able to smack the college ranks in the face when you have an exceptional talent. Xavier Worthy is exceptionally fast, routinely ran a 4.4 something 40 as a freshman in high school. Ran multiple 100-meter dashes between 10.5 and 10.65. These are elite times. It was obvious he was going to smack the NCAA in the face once he got onto the field. Marquise Brown did the same thing, obviously to a different extent, when he joined the Baltimore Ravens in 2019. 584 yards is a good number for a rookie wide receiver, and 7 touchdowns is an exceptional number for a rookie wide receiver. In their second seasons there, 60 receptions for Xavier Worthy, 58 receptions for Marquise Brown, 760 yards for Xavier Worthy, 769 yards for Marquise Brown, a 12.7 yard average on Worthy, a 13.3 on Marquise Brown, 9 touchdowns for Worthy, 8 touchdowns for Marquise Brown. Very similar seasons. And then what happens for their third season, Xavier Worthy's third season in college and Marquise Brown's third season in the NFL? It turns out that the NFL is very good at taking something away from you. If you are a one-dimensional player, even if that dimension is extremely elite, they can take it away from you. Sure they can. So, what happened for Xavier Worthy? His receptions ballooned to 75. He crossed the 1,000-yard mark at 1,014. What happened for Marquise Brown? His receptions ballooned to 91 receptions. He finally crossed the 1,000-yard mark with 1,008 yards. Both of their receiving touchdown numbers dropped. They had to become more like possession wide receivers. Now, the super exciting thing about this fact is not only that both of them can become more like a possession wide receiver, but the fact that the same offense employing both of them means there will always be one of them, so long as both of them are healthy, that gets to be the speed guy, right? So, taking a step back, I've been watching a lot of his tape. I've gone back and tried to, because if you remember, I was not huge on Xavier Worthy heading to the draft. I didn't think he was a first-round guy. I still don't necessarily believe he's a first-round guy, but that doesn't mean I don't think he has first-round talent. That doesn't mean I don't think that he can come in and be a starter. That doesn't mean I don't think he can come in and be a number one wide receiver. Rashee Rice, not a first-round guy, was the number one wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. I am beginning to... So what I think of when I think of a first-round guy, that says he has the measurables. Xavier Worthy has all of the measurables except for weight. Okay, fine. It means you have the production. You start looking at Xavier Worthy's production, and he has had it. Didn't necessarily end that way all that much. Did not get progressively better. His sophomore season dipped, but he had an all-world type freshman season and a very solid wide receiver season in his senior or in his junior season. So why am I saying now that it might be that Xavier Worthy is a number one wide receiver in the NFL? Well, here's the big one, in my opinion. Last season, when the year started, Marquez Valdes-Scantling was, in effect, the Kansas City Chiefs' number one wide receiver. We saw how well that turned out. Why, though? MVS was still fast, right? MVS could get open, right? Both of those things are true about Marquez Valdes-Scantling. We all know the reason why he was not an effective wide receiver one is that he could not catch the football. But oftentimes, catching is a result of more than just the hands. Marquez Valdes-Scantling had terrible ball tracking skills. He would get himself out of sorts downfield while the ball was in the air, and that is what ended up causing him to not be able to get into a proper position to catch the football. It seems to me this is one of the areas where Xavier Worthy really excels. Down the field ball tracking, and this is what adds to the credibility of Xavier Worthy being a punt returner. Remember when Dustin Colquitt was the Chiefs punter? All of those fumbles that resulted as the matter of fact from Dustin Colquitt's left foot. He was punting the ball with his left foot, so one small thing, the rotation of the football, was slightly different for a punt returner, and it resulted in multiple fumbles for the Kansas City Chiefs. That is how particular punt returning really is. And the biggest deal with that is being in the right spot when the football comes down. I don't know if you've ever played football and tried to return a punt, you know how maddening that absolutely is. It's not like a video game where your avatar on the screen simply maneuvers his way automatically into position. Once that football goes up in the air, it's just hanging there until it starts its downward trajectory. Upon which, you'd better find yourself in the right place with your vision here. Not here, but here. Because these are the guys trying to take your head off. Very difficult. A very difficult skill set to have. We know that because we watched Sky Moore try to do it. But the most difficult part of that skill chain, in my opinion, is ball tracking. And Xavier Worthy proved himself to be elite at being able to track the ball in college. Now, so just there, last year's Kansas City Chiefs had Xavier Worthy been on the field as opposed to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, guys, I feel comfortable saying the Chiefs would have had a couple more wins. I really do. Simply that ball tracking capability, which makes the defense have to respect you being on the field, would change the entirety of the game. Here's another thing that Xavier Worthy, is very, very good at. Stoppability. I think his start ability, so start right once you're in the route, I think his start ability is much less consistent than his stop ability. His stop ability, everybody of my generation remembers where they were when Reggie Bush played Fresno State. Everybody knows where they were. It's like the JFK moment for football fans of my generation. Reggie Bush running wild down the sideline just stops out of nowhere. Middle of the field, stops right there, and everyone else runs past him. Everybody of my generation remembers that play. Xavier Worthy has that type of stoppability. This makes him more dangerous in more ways on more areas of the field than other elite speedster on the Kansas City Chiefs, Mecole Hardman. Now, I don't know that he has Kadarius Toney type wiggle. Kadarius Toney has the both start and stop ability. Xavier Worthy, in my opinion, is much better at the stop ability, right? So there's a little bit maybe to be worked on there for Xavier Worthy, but that stop ability makes him very much more dangerous than Mecole Hardman straight out of the box. That's two things on two wide receivers that are supposed to have said skills. I already mentioned the fact that he runs effective stims on his routes. What do I mean by this? I mean that he is getting separation early in the route. He is making the first few steps off of the line count towards something. I was smitten with Sky Moore's route running ability coming out of college. Turns out I was wrong. Turns out all of that wasted motion just makes you slower at getting to the important part of the route. Xavier Worthy does not waste the type of motion that Sky Moore does. I do still have hope for Sky Moore. This is year 3. Year 3 is traditionally where a wide receiver has his last chance to break out. It used to be said that year 3 was basically when a wide receiver had his first chance to break out. So this being year 3 for Sky Moore, we may or may not see something out of him. But he has something to learn from Xavier Worthy as far as what it means to run an effective route, especially at the stem. So that's something he does better than Sky Moore, which was what Sky Moore was supposed to be the guy to do. Now, this next one might be unfair because MVS, being the speed guy, being the downfield threat, he's supposed to have ball tracking ability. Mecole Hardman, being the speedster, being the quick guy, he's supposed to have some stop ability. He's just a go guy. He's just a gas guy. All gas, no brakes. Okay, different skill set. Sky Moore, the route technician, supposed to have effective stims. Justin Watson, maybe it's unfair to expect him to have run after the catch ability. He is a traditional X-type build. He's 6'2", 215, runs a 4.4, 440, I believe. He's supposed to be able to turn upfield, put a shoulder into somebody, and fall forward. Guys, I don't know off the top of my head, and let me know if I'm not being fair. I don't know that I've ever seen Justin Watson turn upfield. I don't know that I have ever seen Justin Watson break a tackle. I'm not downplaying Justin Watson. I think Justin Watson is a fantastic number 4 wide receiver. I think that Justin Watson has the opportunity to be the best number 5 wide receiver in the entire NFL. I don't know that I have ever seen him fall forward. Xavier Worthy, despite the fact that he is 5'11", 122 pounds, falls forward. Xavier Worthy, despite the fact that a box of Cracker Jacks weighs more than he does, has a whole lot of fight in them bones. Xavier Worthy, despite the fact that his cleats have never been replaced because they've never had wear and tear, because he's never actually put any weight on them, has run after the catch ability. An impressive run after the catch ability. So that's something he does better than Justin Watson, despite the fact that Justin Watson has the size, at least, to be able to do that. Now, one of the things that has been a pleasant surprise to me, that was a pleasant surprise to me in the playoffs, I guess I should say. During the season, Rashee Rice basically stood at the line of scrimmage and made receptions. That's not traditionally what guys his size do. Guys his size are normally able to create, the way guys his size and speed combination usually create separation is by varying the speeds of their routes. He did this in the playoffs. He did this effectively in the Super Bowl. So he's not bad at this. Rashee Rice changing up the old speedball on his routes. Xavier Worthy is better. It's easy to look at Xavier Worthy's game and think, yeah, he just runs real fast. It's not the case. He is very good at creating an effective stem by varying the speed. So if he runs a 10-yard out route, starts real fast, slows down, lets the corner catch up to him before absolutely annihilating the corner with the out cut because the guy thought he was playing good coverage and then accelerating. He's very good at changing the speed of his. I noticed this particularly, it seems, on post routes, where he's going to create distance with an effective stem, let that cornerback sort of catch up to him, and then absolutely destroy the guy with your cut. Because then he has no idea where you are because he synced his speed with yours, and all of a sudden you're gone. So, also, the last thing I have to say about the skills contest here, he secures the catch, unlike Kadarius Toney. He is a guy, if you watch the film, you'll notice that if he thinks there is a threat, he won't catch the ball. The ball's in an odd place. Maybe he has to reach out for it, etc. Instead of continuing the route and ensuring run after the catch once the catch is made, what he will do is sell out for the catch. He will dive for the catch. He will slide for the catch. Now, in the college game, once you do that, the play's over, right? So you've killed the play at that point, but you have made sure that you made the catch. I think that is... We saw that with Tyreek Hill. There was the reception against the Chargers where he had to reach out to make the reception, lost his footing and rolled, and then got back up and kept running, right? He sold out for the catch. We saw very often from Mecole Hardman, we saw very often from Marquez Valdes-Scantling, the inability to make that decision. Be sure you make the catch. After that, everything is gravy. But if the catch is routine, you have to stay on your feet and make the reception. So he's got that type of good judgment. Hopefully, all of these things come together, and I don't think I've ever said this before. Xavier Worthy might be a number one wide receiver. I don't know if it's going to be right off the bat. I think there's going to be some things that he has to adjust to in the NFL, some things that he has to learn in the NFL. But I think Xavier Worthy with this skill set might be a number one wide receiver. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Kansas City Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. We're approaching 500 consecutive days of uploads, and I've got something kind of different planned for that, so long as I can get that executed. It's something a little bit different to this corner of the YouTube machine, something that is kind of more prevalent in other areas, but something that I think could ultimately make the doldrums of the off season go a little bit easier, be a little bit more fun to get through if we are able to. I don't know if it's going to work in the sports corner of the internet, but it's something that you see in other corners of the internet. So yeah, the Chiefs are the only thing that I talk about here on this channel. I will be back tomorrow, so long as I am able to be back tomorrow with another video. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.